My name's Alec and I. I'm from Cleveland. I'm 26. I would like to consider myself doing all right. I graduated college, in the corporate world, you know. So this is, I'm just your normal dude. No, nothing too special. But, just to go into like my background is I started watching anime in, around 2003, 2004. Toonami was really something special. I'd get home from school and it would be like on Saturday, Friday nights, Saturday nights. And you would see these series like Yu Yu Hakusho, Rurouni Kenshin, and Cowboy Bebop. And they were just, I was young, but they were different. All the series you would watch, American cartoons were, okay, they've got the lesson at the end and everything's always fine. It's always so episodic. But when you started getting into like real serious TV that, had narratives, the seasons, the characters moved forward, that for me, when I was young, like blew my mind. So it was always like really, really interesting. And it got me hooked. I didn't even know it was Japanese at the time. Obviously they had Japanese names, but child me didn't really make the connection that like, oh, this is a series that was produced in Japan years ago, and now it's coming to the United States. All right. So then going forward, you get into Naruto, and then what kind of clued me in was like in middle school, and you'd like look up Naruto videos, and you're like, wow, that's from something that I haven't seen yet, because obviously the English dub was so far behind. And then you kind of start looking around like, oh, this is a Japanese TV show, let me catch up on this, and then that spiraled into the whole, like you get into Bleach, you get into things like Hitman Reborn, tried One Piece, and then that kind of spiraled forward, into my descent into fandom, basically.
Nice. It sounds a little similar to my upbringing as well, and how I completely fell in love with anime and manga. But you mentioned a couple series that I haven't heard anyone really mention in a while. Can you tell us a little bit about like some of the series that you love, or even like what draws you towards manga?
So, some of the series I love is like is when I got into high school is when I started like really, really delving deep. And like some of my favorite series from that time was Beelzebub. I was really obsessed with that. That's actually what series that got me into reading manga. And then you get into series like, obviously like your freshman in high school, The Dead was a big one. Code Geass, 2007, waiting Sunday mornings when the fan sub of Code Geass would come up. That show blew my mind, along with like Death Note. Just in terms of like, it didn't, the characters were smart. And that was so different than like the normal stuff you saw, even in the anime community at the time.
Yeah, that era of anime was so good. Like he said, like Death Note was amazing. Geass was amazing. Even like Gundam Seed Destiny, like that. All of those series were so impactful for me, and I met a lot of friends through that shared interest that we had with those series. You also said that like you are into manga as well, and I like Beelzebub is kind of like what got you into like the whole manga thing. What manga series do you like, genres or anything that you're reading from that era that maybe kind of segued into what you're reading now?
So, a lot like normal, like the average anime fan, you start off with like the typical shonen battle series, like the Narutos, the Bleaches. I didn't really care for One Piece all that much. I tried at one point to make my way through, and I got up to Thriller Bark, if anyone knows what that is, before you just kind of like tap out on the length. But it was a school trip to Disney World where I'm like, all right, I would need something to read on the way. And I bought a couple of volumes of Blue Exorcist, which isn't this very popular series here in the West, but like young me loved it. So I got that. chewed through those all throughout the bus ride down, read them on the way back, read them like 4 more times. Like I had like volumes like 1 through 4. And then I'm like, you know what? I really like this. I'm gonna start buying manga, and that's turned into a vast collection from everything from, that Tokyo Ghoul, Monster, Magi. I own all of like Full Metal Alchemist. So that was, it was just something about like the way the decompressed like storytelling, where everything is shot like it's, all the panels are drawn like it's a movie, in terms of like, in American comic books, like you only have so many pages and everything's colored, so it's a lot more expensive, but, with it being black and white, a lot of the storytelling, as you see in the animes, are, takes it slower. You get to know the characters more, get to explore the motivations. And that's why I think I really got drawn to it. And now mostly what I do is read manga, while just keeping up with some modern anime series. But I keep up with a lot of the modern manga as well now.
That's an interesting way that you put it, how it's storyboarding similar to how Hollywood movies would do it. You're right. I actually never really thought of it like that. But when you do consider the amount of pages that go into like a weekly and then you compare it to a monthly comic book, manga, it is different, and it does make for a different vibe. But you're still reading manga till today. What mangas within the last few years that have been released are you currently reading?
So right now, I'm eagerly awaiting for Chainsaw Man Part 2. I'm keeping up with My Hero, obviously Attack on Titan. I just started Jujutsu Kaisen, but like Monster Kaiju number 8 is something that like I've absolutely fallen in love with. That and Chainsaw Man are the stuff that get me most excited. They're not super popular right now, but I think they're both going to get huge when they get animes.
Can we talk about Chainsaw Man for a bit?
Of course.
So I 100% agree with you. Chainsaw Man is going to be a very, very popular series, and the same way a lot of people are into Jujutsu Kaisen, I think they're going to love Chainsaw Man even more. But it's such an interesting series. Everything about it, from its commentary about like what's happening today, to the setting, to the era that it takes place in, to even like the art. Like I like so much about Chainsaw Man, and I find it so unique as a shonen, because it takes so many different elements from other comics that I've read, and it makes it transcend the shonen label that it has. I also can't wait for part 2, because it's just that compelling of a story, and I felt so engaged with all of the characters. What did you like about it?
So what I really liked most about it was when you go back and reread it, it's all like there's only like 90 some chapters. Like it goes very, very quick. But the author always takes time to like have a small breather, like in chapters, and just show the little moments where the characters are interacting with each other that like, even though you are with them sort of for such a brief amount of time, it feels like a series like double the length. You meet, a lot of the especially a lot of the early characters, and, some of them go away, some of them not, but you feels like them for a lot longer than you do. And it's just the care that the author puts into, these little tiny interactions, these small moments, where they are really like acting like people, and especially like Denji isn't a dumb dude. Like he's uneducated, but he's not dumb, and I think that's attracted to me because especially going from the previous era of like battle shonen, everything was inspired by the Dragon Ball, like loves meat, dumb, loves to fight. And you're seeing like Denji and a lot of these modern shonen protagonists that are smart people, like Tanjiro from Demon Slayer, intelligent guy, Deku, smart dude, and it's everything's kind of moving towards like a more cerebral approach to these series, not treating like the readers like they're dumb.
Yeah, you're right. That's also one of the reasons why I feel like I'm having another wave of appreciation for manga and animes, because and perhaps it has to do with the fact that it's more mainstream now, but you have series and you have characters where the story is like, as I said before, it's much more compelling. You can get more complex with your character. It just doesn't have to be a recycled Goku over and over and over again. Like the last dumb character that I appreciated was from Naruto, and now it's like you want a character that is like they have something holding them back, but they're not stupid. They care more than just about eating. They have real goals, and as the series progresses, they want to accomplish their goals. And another thing that I like about modern series is that they're not as long as some of the series that we came up on. So, like, for example, part 1 of Chainsaw Man was, like, it's only part 1, but I feel like I learned so much about this character. And when I go back to, like, an older series, like, let's say, the original Dragon Ball manga, I felt like we never got to know Goku to a level that justified it being that long. Even with Naruto or Bleach, like, Ichigo is such an underdeveloped character. Naruto is fun, and I think the point of that series is to show the ensemble cast, but at the same time, you can have an ensemble cast, but then have a main character that you can resonate with, or you can develop their personality so you actually care about them when they're engaging in battle, or you care about the side characters when they're put in like a perilous situation. Even like with Tokyo Ghoul, Tokyo Ghoul had its flaws, but I felt like at that era of manga, like 2011, 2012, when you just started to see that peak of popularity, you started seeing authors putting pen to paper and creating better, more interesting characters.
Exactly. One thing I've been kind of enamored with over the past year is kind of seeing how especially in Shonen Jump, the kind of the lineage of, where these authors are like take their inspiration from, and kind of fixing what I view as flaws of the previous generation. Like when Naruto was ending, Horikoshi, the author of My Hero, wrote, he's like, Naruto was my favorite manga, and then in a recent interview with the author of Jujutsu Kaisen, he talked about being really inspired by Togashi's Yu Yu Hakusho, Hunter x Hunter, as well as Bleach. Like the beginning of Jujutsu Kaisen is basically a gender swapped chapter 1 of Bleach, and they even did just a cross promotion the other day. If you saw like on Reddit, r/manga, and you see like how like underdeveloped the cast was in Naruto, and how much like Horikoshi is really put into like filling out like all of Class 1A. You know who they are, at least on a more deeper level than just like one fight. Everybody's had a chance to shine so far, and Yuji for Jujutsu Kaisen, like he's actually got like a goal. He's got, he's kind of more Ichigo reactionary character, but he actually has a goal and something he's working towards to like push the plot forward, where I think Bleach kind of stumbled a lot because Ichigo was very like, stuff happened around him instead of him like going out and saying, okay, I'm going to do this. And it kind of felt like you're just along for the ride instead of the character actually doing something.
Yep, I fully agree with you. Ichigo was way too bland of a main character, and I felt like even like the characters around him that were more interesting at the time, Rukia, even like Orihime, I liked Chad. I didn't expect him to be like a main character, but you had like developing backstories for them, and then like you have Renji coming in, you have like the ice captain, I think his name was Hyuga or something. Like you had all of these characters coming in, and they were interesting, and there was a lot of character like design put into them to make them popular, and then Kubo just couldn't write them well. And maybe he lost interest in the series partway through. I think that's pretty obvious. And like maybe he was never as strong of a writer as we thought. But I look at Bleach as a cautionary tale, and I think many authors do as well, because as much as I love it, it's the friend who had so much potential, and they were surrounded by so many others that had potential, but they couldn't live up to that, even though they were surrounded by those that should have pushed them. But Bleach just never did that. I really hope the newer Bleach series, like the spin-off and the anime, kind of bring justice to what happened towards the end, because the last like 3-4 years of Bleach was insufferable for me.
Oh, yeah. And one thing, I don't know if you know this, but there was an interview with Kubo where he talked about wanting to give up like towards the midway point of Thousand Year Blood War. And then it kind of came out a little bit afterwards. I think he torn his labrum or something. And he submitted the final chapter and then immediately went into surgery. So like, you know, and just, I can't imagine what it must be like, especially like him and to like Togashi has the back problems to like try and draw these series on a weekly basis, you know. So it kind of like it kind of explains what happened, but it doesn't kind of excuse like kind of all the crap at the end.
Yeah, that like I as much as I feel bad for manga authors, because we know, like, we hear about all their stories. We hear about how hard it is for them with their medical issues and being hunched over, drawing, rewriting. Sometimes they don't have as many assistants as they need, or they don't want to work with so many assistants. Like even with the author of Nana, I really like Nana. I don't think that series is ever going to be completed. I love Hunter. I don't know if Hunter's ever going to see a real ending. And you want Hunter to continue, but like, I'm being optimistic. But now I feel like I'm also being delusional, as with many of the fans. You have to consider the health of the author, but also consider the fact that why would the author put themselves through something that they physically and maybe emotionally just aren't 100% committed to anymore?
Yeah, you know, and you know, especially as someone like Togashi, who's got like, you know, he's made his money, you know, you know, as much as you hate to see like such a great author like kind of go and not complete the story he started, like I don't blame him if like you're struggling, you've got the money to not do it. Like, you know, I wish you would just have like wrapped it up at the end of the you know, the end of where the anime ended off, instead of introducing this whole new world to then say nah.
Yeah, I think he was feeling good about himself. He's like, yeah, okay, I can do this election thing. I can start developing my older characters. I can make Kurapika into like this character. And he's very ambitious, and I think he's extremely capable. But like, it's the same thing with Yu Yu Hakusho. I think Togashi is a very strong writer. I think he thinks he's more capable than what he can actually produce. And like I say this as a fan of his. I grew up on Yu Yu Hakusho from like the 90s, and like I really love all of these characters and these series, but I don't see the commitment there. I don't see realistically how Hunter can have a strong ending at this point.
Yeah, it's too much to go, too little chapters. Like, I always wonder, like, why is it always like the greatest series have these authors that just never finish, like Game of Thrones, or if you read the Kingkiller Chronicles by Patrick Rothfuss, you know, it's always like, oh, it's so good, but come on. Or Berserk.
I don't think Berserk's ever getting an ending either.
No.
To be honest, I can't see it, and the story has been, for me, dipping a little bit. I don't know. Like I'm so interested, and I want to see the ending. I want to see what happens. But like when you have like 3 or 4 chapters coming out a year,
what do you think's more likely, Berserk ending or getting a good adaptation?
Oh wow, that's impossible and never gonna happen. I think because of, and this ties into my next question for you. I think because of the popularity of anime and manga, Berserk is going to get that eventual Hollywood adaptation, because like I can see that happening. And I can see them wanting to make Berserk into like the next Game of Thrones or the next like Witcher. You know what I mean? They want to bring it to a sort of like, how can we take something that realistically a good part of the story is all like live action stuff, and it's stuff that North American audiences are familiar with. So whether the Berserk gets that North American acceptance across the board, that will push the author to Kentaro to actually like finish the story, I think then we'll actually get an ending. But also, like you said, he's made his money, he has his legacy. Why would he push himself to get some ending when, like, nowadays everyone knows like George R.R. Martin is like a thing that we attach to authors that like aren't able to finish a story, or writers that aren't able to like finish the adaptation properly. Maybe we'll never get a real manga ending for Berserk, but we'll get alternate endings through like maybe a finally good anime adaptation or a live action movie.
Yeah, you know, and then with Berserk in particular, I think that one is, yeah. So Berserk, if anything, would be like really, that Full Metal Alchemist would be very easy to adapt. So one thing I've noticed, like with some of these adaptions, that they're like, okay, well, do we want to do Naruto, Bleach? I think with like the cultural boundaries, it'd be really difficult to bring some of these like shonen action series over, just because, one, the decompressed nature of the storytelling, and two, you know, like Bleach, for example, relies a lot on like heavy Japanese like cultural significant, iconography, and that just doesn't really resonate with the modern like American audience. Where something like Berserk, it's based in like a Western fantasy world. It's got demons, heroes, like that would, in what, that'd be pretty easy to do it. Like it would be really easy to just like, get a Netflix deal going, adapt it and do a good adaptation without really a lot of complaining.
You're right. You have a good perspective on it. I hope it does come to be. Like, I definitely wish for it to happen, and I think it could happen. Like, Alice in Borderland recently was a pretty solid adaptation. I thought that was very good, and it was faithful enough to the manga, and I was very impressed by what Netflix did with that. I can't wait to see what else they do, because they have the money, they have the backing, they have the interest, and the best thing is that all you need to say to somebody is that this series is based on a popular manga, and whether they even read the manga or not, they're going to want to watch the adaptation. So
and that's kind of crazy to me, considering like if you turn back the clock to like say 2005, where you didn't have this popularity. I remember like trying to find like the kids in middle school and high school that I could talk about Naruto with, and there was only just like a couple handful of people, and no one wanted to admit to anything. And now you walk around and it's like you go out to the restaurant, the server's got My Hero Academia shirts on. You see, especially when Attack on Titan blew up, you see people in like survey corps. I remember going out to visit some of the nightlife, and the bouncer had a survey corps jacket on, and I'm like, that's pretty cool.
that never would have happened before.
Oh no.
So this is perfect. I wanted to ask you about that. We came up around the same time with anime and manga, so we know what the scene is like. We know about the series that kind of pushed anime to being as popular as it is. What differences can you see, aside from what you've already mentioned, from like 2005, 2006, when all those iconic series came out, till today, where like you can go grocery shopping and you see someone wearing like Mangekyo Sharingan contacts and you don't blink an eye?
So I think there's two parts to it. So I think the biggest change is that they moved away from these long-running anime to doing it seasonal. So like something like a My Hero Academia, for example, you watch season 1, 2, and it's all high quality. It's all story content. It's all like, it's well animated. The Sakuga is there. Like it's all really, really good, and it's digestible. Where before, if you wanted to get into Naruto, you had to go through like 100 episodes of filler, and then some episodes it was like filler within the episode, because you were trying to just drag it out to not catch up with the manga, and so that one is made I think the quality of the anime now much higher, just on the production side. And two, like stuff like Dragon Ball, like Bleach, Naruto, kind of already laid the groundwork for that to happen. So like all those kids that got like really into it back in the day, well, they're our age now, now that, I'm 26, you've got more disposable income and you still like the same stuff you did. Like, so it's like, I think it's similar to the way like rock music was seen, back, in like my parents' generation in like the 80s, where like, oh, you're into like heavy metal, like Ozzy Osbourne, and that was seen as like, oh my God. But now it's like, oh, that's the classic stuff, because as you grow up, you still like the same stuff you used to like, and now that you're the adult, it's like, that's mainstream.
That's right. That is right. And I like to see it. Like, there's some things I don't like about the modern day popularity of anime, and I feel like that comes more so from like the fans and not as much as the series. But I also do feel like there is a little bit too much anime. Like, the fact that there's no filler is great, but the fact that everything gets an anime, and the fact that some animes, like, you can tell are made for the sole purpose of just generating money, that to me is like, I don't mean to be a gatekeeper, but I do feel kind of like resentment towards that. How do you feel towards the modern day fan movement for anime? Like I'm talking about new fans who've kind of come into it and they didn't grow up with it like how we did.
One, like, part of me is like really happy because it's like, oh wow, it's all this stuff that I got made fun of in middle school for is now cool. But part of me, especially like when I go on Reddit and see these discussions that happen, you lose a lot of like the not true fandom, but like the people who look deeper. And so it's like everything is either the best or the worst. Like the current season of Attack on Titan, for example, or like even in the manga, everything is either like, oh, it's either amazing or it's Game of Thrones season 8. There's no nuance, because I think as things get more popular, the amount of hot takes kind of shoot up. People really just kind of start memeing around, and they don't actually like listen to like what the series is trying to do or try to say. And everything is about like, what does the meme say about this? Well, if everybody's hating on it because of X, Y reason, well, I'm going to hate on it too, even if I'm not look any deeper than that. And it kind of makes me sad that you lose a lot of like just enjoying it, and everything is just being picked apart by thousands of people on Reddit.
You're right. And like I feel that Attack on Titan, especially for this season, it should be the template going forward for popular series of how fans should and they shouldn't react. They're complaining about like certain scenes where like a character isn't shaded in properly, or like CGI being used, and it's like, appreciate what we have. Appreciate a series. Like, this is literally history in the making. 5-10 years from now, we're going to look back, and we're probably going to be going through a lull of series, and we'll look back and be like, I wish we could get something as good as AOT. I wish something as good as AOT season 4 existed for this anime that has a terrible last season. So
yeah, and I definitely agree with you. And then there is too much out there now. Like, I remember, maybe it's just because all the garbage that was put out, you watched what like people translated, because there was no Crunchyrolls, there was no, Funimation. I mean, there was Funimation, but like if you wanted to watch a dub or official stuff, you had to wait like a year or two for the DVDs to come out. Where everything was like, okay, well, this fan translation with the yellow subtitles is doing it, and you're going to watch what they pick up, because or else you're just not going to watch it at all. So maybe like that stuff was all curated away from us before. But it definitely seems is that like there was less stuff, and stuff was more, people were more engaged on like one or a couple of shows, instead of like, oh, well, this season we've got ReZero season 2 along with Mushoku Tensei, Attack on Titan, and like 100 other shows that, you're expected to try and keep up with, which I gave up a long time ago. But it's everybody, and then everybody's complaining about everything.
Yeah, exactly. The yellow subtitles thing, that really brought me back. Fans don't know how great they have it today. They don't know the lengths we had to go through to get a series. They don't.
When you had to like go on some sketchy site that like pretty sure would give you a virus. Oh yeah. And like you had to click through like 4 different like smears of it, and then hope that the translation was somewhat good. Yeah. Because it's been ripped off, and and going back and now watching some of like the real translations, it's like, oh wow, these characters were a little bit different. Yeah. Like I want to bring this to like the JoJo manga. When I was reading the JoJo manga, the translations were so bad. There were times when like there'd be a whole page and it just wouldn't be translated. They would just like leave it blank. They would take out the Japanese and they would leave it blank. So it's like, look how far we've come. Look how accessible and easy it is to consume everything now. Yeah, even going back like 5 years or so. I don't know if you read like were in like reading Tokyo Ghoul Weekly as it was coming out. Yeah. But the scanlators or whoever was doing it, like everything was so dark. You couldn't see anything. Yeah. And then I'm like, okay, well maybe it's just going downhill. And then when I bought the physical volumes, I'm like, oh my God, like I can actually see what's going on now. And now it's like everything's like on Viz. And you can just read it on an app with like the high quality translation, scans with like professional translators. And it's just like, this is so much better. So much better. I don't want to go back to how it was before. Despite all the drama and stuff that we have now, like I appreciate how great and the high quality it is for this art that we can now appreciate. Yeah.
So I have a couple more questions for you. Quick questions. How do you think anime and manga will evolve throughout the 20s? Do you think we're going to continue to see it grow past what it is today? Do you think we're going to have maybe like a renaissance of different genres coming up, or is this possibly the peak?
Oh yeah, no, I think it's still going to keep going up. You know, with the next biggest hit, like especially when I look at trends, I mean, you look at Shonen Jump because they're the big boys, you know, on top. And with like Chainsaw Man moving to Jump Plus, the online version, you know, Monster number 8 is, you know, exploding out in Japan. 25 chapters on the online version. I haven't read it, but I've heard Spy Family is like really, really good. And it seems like these are like, they're all vastly different series. And, you know, they're getting in record sales without even animes out. So I think that we really are entering a renaissance of manga, especially, you know, with the old guard kind of gone and everybody looking for something new and different. You know, we're seeing more different stuff now than I think we ever have. Because before everything was like that Goku ripoff, you know, the Dragon Ball clone, and now everything is like everybody's moved past that and have like really tried new things.
You're right. Let's see. Let's wait and see for what's over the horizon.
Oh yeah.
How do you feel about the YouTube anime scene? Anitubers, anime reviewers, all of that.
I mean, I used to be more interested in it when I was younger. I think the quality, like some channels have like really done well, like Trash Taste podcast, phenomenal. But like some of the old guard of like the anti-tubers, like the Forever World, and you know, it's kind of like lost their luster, but you know, when like the big three ended, you know, and things just kind of, it's like, okay, you're going to read the chapter and review it, but they've turned it more towards discussions. And I just think the quality of that scene has like gone down from the peak.
Yeah, I can agree with you. I love Trash Taste. I think that's a direction that more people should go in. Like if you consider wanting to be an anti-tuber, you should consider ongoing collaboration. You should also consider stretching out past anime and manga, talk about the surrounding the adjacent stories that go with it. Because I watch Trash Taste. I could turn on Trash Taste and like my friends could be around and they could watch it as well, and they pick up on the conversation. And it's not just solely focused on anime, but like it's very engaging. And obviously you have entertainers that are very experienced in the anime community, so it's very properly curated and focused. But I love Trash Taste, and I really hope that like more anti-tubers coming up, if they decide to do what they're doing, make it similar to that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I think it was like when they years ago they did Podtaku, you know, and that kind of like laid the groundwork for all of that. And you know, I think a lot of things are moving more towards just the podcasting in general, like especially with the popularity of like Joe Rogan. And it seems like everybody's doing their own podcast, like Bill Burr. You know, I think that's just kind of the direction things are going, because you know, with YouTube being kind of like pushing more towards like corporate stuff, I think people are still looking for like the return of like the individual personality rather than in a long form.
Yeah, I agree to that. So can you give us a couple recommendations of anime and manga, things that you've read or you finished reading or you want to read that you want to pass along to the viewers?
So I'm sure this one is probably on the top of a lot of people's list. Well, maybe not for the younger viewers. Fate Zero, absolutely phenomenal. It's with an older cast, so it's a little bit more mature, but I think it's absolutely phenomenal. In terms of manga, if you're looking for shonen, one that's kind of gone under the radar, it's finished, is Magi. It's based on 1001 Arabian Nights. It's a less shonen action and more political thriller, which you wouldn't think, but it really is. And like, if you like comedy, Beelzebub is obviously one of my favorites. I even got the little mark of the series tattooed on my back. So
really, wow,
yeah,
you're a big fan.
Yeah, that was the first tattoo I got when me and my friends graduated college. We walked into a tattoo shop and we're like, all right, we're all getting tattoos, and that's what I got. So you know, it's basically a deconstruction of the shonen battle genre. and it really, it's a comedy series, and it makes fun of a lot of things that, like, if you've read like a lot of shonen, you're really going to like it, because it really makes fun of it. It's great.
Wicked, cool. I appreciate those suggestions, and I'm sure people will love them as well. Some of those series, like especially Fate, they really help push me into the direction of a quality series, a good series. But look, Alec, I want to say thank you. This was a amazing conversation. I really enjoyed hearing your perspectives about anime as it was, as it is, and what it may be. And I thought it was just a great conversation.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, man. I'll let you go, but I want everyone to obviously like and subscribe, but check out all of these series, and I think you guys will really enjoy what we were talking about if you actually dig deeper into those aforementioned series. This was Kero Riri Paddle. Thank you guys for stopping by.